Positive Spin, the program that presents positive, innovative, and solution-oriented news from around the world. On today's program, we profile Raul Dutoit, an environmentalist who is leading the movement to save the endangered black rhino population in Zimbabwe, Africa. In 2011, Mr. Dutoit received the prestigious Goldman Environmental Prize for his important environmental work. And we'll hear two-time Olympic athlete Marilyn King's inspiring message of how applying Olympian principles in our lives can lead to creating a more peaceful world. And finally, we'll join our associate Bill Miller at the UN television studios in New York, where he will interview the director of UNESCO, the United Nations Education, Science, and Cultural Organization.
In our first segment, we profile Raul Dutoit, an environmentalist from Zimbabwe and recipient of the 2011 Goldman Environmental Prize, the world's largest and most prestigious award honoring grassroots activists from around the globe. Raul Dutoit's conservation initiatives have developed and maintained the largest remaining population of endangered black rhinos in Zimbabwe. He applied the innovative approach of building community awareness of the need to conserve rhinos while at the same time focusing on wildlife conservation and land. This strategy was designed to assure that Zimbabwe is constantly negotiating the balance between conservation and development.
By
1992, the entire rhinoceros population in Zambia had been poached. Raul Dutoit was horrified as bands of poachers began to cross the border to his native Zimbabwe to slaughter the animals for their horns. Raul proposed moving the endangered rhinos hundreds of miles away from the Zambian border to safe habitats in southern Zimbabwe's low-veld region.
We moved, I think it's a total of 111 rhinos, black rhinos, into the low-veld, and they built up to 4 times that number. When we started that, this low-veld had 4% of Zimbabwe's rhinos, and it's now got 80% of Zimbabwe's rhinos. We do know these rhinos pretty well, and that's because we've been involved in moving them, sometimes under fairly arduous kind of conditions. A lot of sweat and blood's been involved in that. Catching rhinos is not easy. There's always risks in that. I've had my pelvis cracked by a rhino before. You can imagine if you're running down the road and a bus hits you from behind. It's pretty well what it was like.
Raul and his team were recently dealt another crushing blow when 100 of their cherished herd of 400 rhinos were ruthlessly poached for their horns.
Most of these animals we've known since they were born. And the next thing you find them with a bullet in their head and the horns hacked off. It is very difficult, and in some cases you lose entire families. They are very much coming in prepared to shoot and kill us and our patrols. We have lost scouts.
These tragic losses force Raul to bolster their security measures and their elaborate monitoring systems.
We've got to audit the rhinos. If rhinos go missing and you don't detect that they've been poached, then that poaching can build up insidiously. So basically we just got to keep an eye on them. And we do that through a combination of the bushcraft skills and the high-tech skills involved with the radio tracking, aircraft, new transponder technology, all coming together to build up a comprehensive picture of what the rhinos are up to.
I think Raul's strengths are in that he's very dedicated and passionate about the rhino. It's without doubt the next species that is going to face extinction.
We have to build that sense of respect and wonder for these huge animals, and also a sense of pride. These are African animals, and the African communities must feel some pride that they're here as animals that the rest of the world looks at in awe.
For outstanding environmental achievement in Africa, the 2011 Goldman Environmental Prize is awarded to Raul Dutoit, Harare, Zimbabwe.
In the following segment, we hear a message of peace from two-time Olympian Marilyn King, whose 20-year athletic career includes 5 national titles and a world record. An automobile accident in 1979 rendered her unable to train physically for her 3rd Olympic team in the grueling 5-event pentathlon. Using only mental training techniques, she placed 2nd at the Olympic trials for the 1980 Moscow Games. This extraordinary experience and the resulting research led to a 30-year career as an expert in the field of exceptional human performance. Her work is a powerful example of applying skills learned through sports to business, education, and peace.
Hello, I'm Marilyn King. And as an Olympian, I take our ancient role as messengers very seriously, which is why I'm carrying the Olympic torch today, because I want to pass it on to you. And my message basically has 2 parts. One is that we can make it. We can do this. We can create and live in a world that works for all. And I know this because first and foremost, I had the privilege of living in the Olympic Village with people of every race and religion and political persuasion, and we lived in peace. And primarily because as we looked around in one another's eyes, first and foremost, we had respect for one another. And the second thing we had was curiosity. The second part of my message is that we can accelerate our shift to permanent peace by applying the same powerful thinking skills that Olympic athletes use to achieve their goal. As an Olympian, I experienced the importance of daily physical practice for my body. But equally, if not more important, were my daily mental practices. What if we were to apply the most important daily mental practices that Olympians use to achieve permanent peace? Of all the daily mental practices I use, I believe the most important is what happened upon awakening. All of us, when we wake up first thing in the morning, we remind ourselves, who am I, what day is it, what lies ahead in this day. Olympic athletes, when they wake up, they envision their goal and they remember, I'm going for 8 gold medals, or for 1 gold medal, or just to make the finals at the next Olympic Games. Olympic athletes awaken every day and they remember, oh yeah, I'm going for 8 gold medals, or for the best mark in the world this year, or just to make the finals. After envisioning their goal, they move into their day to make it happen. So today, I invite you to engage what I call begin your day the Olympian way. Imagine that you are on the peace team, that you too are training for 2012. I invite you to set your clock 5 minutes early every day, and not just envision your goal, but envision our goal. Envision the dream of everyone around the world to live in a world that works for all. By beginning your day the Olympian way and envisioning your goal, you will be employing your best thinking and our highest capabilities as human beings. You may have heard the quote, "He who dies with the most toys wins." I say he who dies with the most toys is playing the wrong game. So I invite you to join the peace team, where peace is the only goal, and where peace is the only game in town. Pass it on.
Next segment, we see the finale to the Regeneration Concert for Possibility, which took place in Los Angeles and brought together Christians, Jews, and Muslims for the one purpose of educating children in the Middle East. The concert featured the Yuval Ron Ensemble and very special guest artists.
To sing with us this song. This is a prayer for peace that I made from an old Israeli love song. This old Israeli love song was only about peace, but we translated it to Hebrew and Arabic, and a Sufi order made a peace prayer from this song, just with the word salam and shalom. But we expanded it to Shalom Salaam, Hallelujah. And we would like you all to sing with us, and please teach your children this song. This is a healing song. And we recorded it in this version with the Arabic and the Hebrew on our CD, Seeker of Truth. We have with us as soloists the very talented Rita Glassman, Yona Kliger, a friend Bassam from Syria, and his friend from Noor are here. They're going to sing with us, and Bassam will sing the Arabic lead, and Rita Glassman will sing the Hebrew lead.
now join our associate Bill Miller with Global Connections Television at the UN studios in New York City with the director of UNESCO.
Welcome to today's Global Connections program. I'm Bill Miller. What is UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization? How do UNESCO programs impact people, literally tens of millions of people around the world? We'll be back in just a moment to talk about these and other important issues. Welcome back to our program. Today we're focusing the spotlight on UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. Now, the name may say a lot about the agency, but there's a lot more to UNESCO that we're going to find out about today. My guest is going to bring us up to date on this very interesting and very important United Nations agency. My guest is Mr. Philippe Kudelka. Mr. Kudelka, who is the director of the New York office of UNESCO, the UN Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, is a Belgian national. He became first secretary at the Belgian embassy in Tehran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, in 1989. He is seconded to UNESCO by the Belgian Foreign Ministry following a very interesting diplomatic career that took him to Warsaw, the World Trade Organization, Singapore, and the Sultanate of Brunei Darussalam, where Mr. Kudelka served as the Belgian ambassador from 2002 to 2005. Mr. Kudelka holds a master's degree in law. He speaks French, English, Dutch, German, and he's learning Chinese. Mr. Philippe Kudelka, welcome to Global Connections Television.
Thank you, Bill.
It's a very impressive resume you have here, very impressive, especially the Chinese part, very good. Let's jump right into it. UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. The three key areas say a lot about it. When was UNESCO formed? Why was it formed? And very generally, what does it do?
So thank you very much, Bill, for your very kind words. And you were, as we were saying on television, as we all know, wars start in the minds of men. So it is also in the minds of men that we have to construct the defenses of peace, working on education, science, culture, and free media, because all those four fields have an important role to play in order to make sure that there would be less wars in the future, and then there is more humanism in our world. So at the end of the Second World War in 1945, the countries which have created the United Nations in New York have decided also to establish a UN agency in Paris whose focus would be on education, science, culture, and communication-free press. Now, what do we do in those four fields? We do basically three things. We do capacity building. For instance, we are training journalists in Tunisia so that they can report in an independent way on the electoral process. We contribute to dialogue, and we are, of course, in a world which is in great need of dialogue. For instance, in Samarra in Iraq in 2007, the shrine was destroyed in a bombing. And the shrine is a Shia shrine, but they are surrounded by a Sunni community. Now, UNESCO has not only rebuilt the shrine in dialogue with the Iraqi government, but we have also a very strong program in order to organize the dialogue between the Shia and the Sunni communities around the restoration and the preservation of that shrine. So capacity building, international dialogue. We do also have a fantastic program on oceanography, where we have regular meetings so that scientists from all over the world and decision makers can meet, exchange data, exchange experiences, so that together we can identify solutions for a better management of oceans. And the third field of our activity is in what President Clinton used to call harnessing globalization, which is hard law like conventions. We've got our famous convention on World Heritage, or soft law principles. For instance, UNESCO is working with ministries of education around the world in order to adopt principles on the best way to include human rights in the school curricula, or the memory of the Holocaust, which should never be forgotten. We work with ministries of education to make sure that the memory of the Holocaust is included in the school curricula and is never forgotten. These are a few examples on how we try to work in order to build the defenses of peace in the minds of men and women, of course.
Exactly. You mentioned the war, World War II, and of course we think back to that horrible carnage. Over 60 million people died. You mentioned the Holocaust,
yes,
which killed 6 million Jews,
yes,
plus 6 million plus probably. And of course, remember the horror of that. And out of the ashes of World War II, we had the United Nations and the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization.
Yes.
We've got some vintage footage from about 10 years ago, I guess it is, something like that, that we're going to run, and we'll focus on that famous quote of, since wars begin in the minds of men, it's in the minds of men the defenses of peace must be constructed. And then we'll watch it and we'll come back and talk about it. But let's go to the video.
Since wars begin in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defences of peace must be constructed. In a world of increased wars, terrorism and intolerance, these words, inscribed in UNESCO's founding charter, are more pertinent than ever before. So too are UNESCO efforts to translate them into action through international cooperation in the fields of education, the sciences, communication, and culture. UNESCO's Paris headquarters and its network of research and training institutes around the world serve as a laboratory of ideas on all these issues, disseminating and sharing information and knowledge among the organization's member states. A specialized agency of the United Nations system, UNESCO works to create conditions for true dialogue based on mutual respect and the dignity of each civilization and culture. It works to share and spread knowledge and to promote education for all. It serves as a standard setter for ethics in science, a watchdog of press freedom, and a champion of human rights.
Mr. Kudelka, I think that gives a vivid overview of the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. And of course, we can see education, science, and culture, how that all fits together. But they brought in the champion of human rights. How do you factor that into your programs, and why is that so important when you're looking at all these other areas that you're working on?
Also, promotion of human rights is, of course, at the core of our mandate. I've already mentioned to you our work on education for human rights, our work to make sure that human rights are better included in school curricula, primary school, secondary school education all over the world. Another field where we are active is on independent media and press freedom. For instance, every year, on 3rd of May, we organize the World Press Freedom Day. And last year in May, we organized it in America, in Washington, D.C., in the Museum. And every time the Director General of UNESCO, Madame Irina Bokova, gives the prize to a journalist which has particularly contributed to the press freedom in the world. And last year, the laureate was Mr. Zaidabadi, who is an Iranian journalist who is in jail in Tehran. And we do hope that by receiving that prize, he could, his example could also serve as an example of people who are ready to combat really and to work hard in order to promote press freedom all over the world. I've mentioned to you the fact that we are training journalists in Tunisia. We are ready to do the same with the new Libyan authorities. We are preparing that, a huge program in order to train Libyan journalists. And I would say that press freedom is probably one of the key sectors where we do promote concretely human rights.
The Millennium Development Goals, there are 8 logical goals that were drafted in 2000. There are several that they all tie into what you're doing, I'm sure, to some degree.
Yes.
But how do you focus more on, do you incorporate these to provide primary universal education for all primary school students, to reduce abject poverty by 50%, to promote sustainable development goal number 7, to empower women? They all factor into your planning?
Yes. So of course, the goal number 2 on education is our core mandate. And by the way, we do not build the schools. UNICEF or UNDP are building the schools. We do capacity building. We help the authorities or the actors in the field of education to elaborate and to implement better education policies in the field. I've mentioned a few examples. In Tanzania, if you want, they wanted also to increase and better the way sciences are taught in the schools in Tanzania, and UNESCO is the agency helping the government to improve the way sciences are taught in their schools. So education. Of course, you've mentioned gender, health, economic development. Education is at the core of all of that. You know that there is a reflection now in the UN system about the post-2015, what would be the longer-term development goals, taking on board, of course, sustainable development. And there, UNESCO is working hard also to convince the various actors of the importance that oceans play in the sustainable development. We need more cooperation within the UN system and more input from the science sector in the field of ocean management. Education remains a key priority and should be developed further. All levels, primary, secondary, university education, technical and vocational training, that's of key importance and will remain extremely important. The role of media in development and democratization is a key factor that probably should be better reflected. And culture for development. Tourism is currently 5% of world GDP. It is growing extremely fast in least developed countries, and we do believe also that creative industries, tourism, jobs around World Heritage sites should be better integrated in cultural policies, and we are ready to contribute to that more.
Mm-hmm. It certainly sounds like it. In our last 30 seconds, I hate to do this to you, what do you see as the major challenge to UNESCO as we move further into the 21st century?
Well, sustainable development is a common challenge for the entire UN family. How to make sure that our organizations can be more efficient, more focused, more relevant, in line with the priorities of the international community in order together to bring answers to those common challenges.
Mm-hmm. It is very, very important. And of course, UNESCO is on the front line, as many United Nations agencies. But Mr. Philippe Kudelka, I want to thank you so very much for a very interesting and very informative program.
Thank you for inviting me.
I'm Bill Miller. Thank you for joining us on today's Global Connections program.
Well, that's our show for today. We hope this program has inspired you to take action in your local community to create a better world. I'm Bill McCarthy, and I want to remind you that everyone can make a difference. Go out and make some positive news.